call the PM to open their case. Here.
All right, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, three, two, one. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, what is side opening government supporting? Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that art should be awarded based merely on the quality of art. That your gender, that your ethnicity, that your religion, and that none of these things should be an influence on exactly how you quantify the value of that art. And we believe that to be the case in today's debate. Now, exactly when we said that we would not give separate art prizes for men and women, how would we do this? 2 points. Firstly, men and women will be awarded in the same category. What does this mean? This means that there will be that categories such as best actor, best leading actress, best supporting actress, they'll all be combined into one larger category. Best lead acting role and best supporting acting role. And secondly, we would expand the categories from 5 to 10 slots, and we will explain later as to why that's important. Now, where do we already see the system? We see there's already a precedent for this gender neutral system in the Grammys, where we see that men and women both compete for best new artist and album of the year. We are completely in support of policies like that. But before moving on, exactly what are the burdens that we need to show to you? Side opening government has to show to you that firstly, that the segregation of men and women in entertainment art prices is firstly principally unjustified. Second, on our side of the world, we enable fair practices, and thirdly, how we help equal representation and create more opportunity. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what are our arguments today? I'll be speaking to you about three things. Firstly, why this is principally unjustified. Secondly, is how we help create more opportunities, and thirdly, how we help equal representation to take place. My second speaker will also go into further detail as to about that third argument. Now, why is it principally unjustified? Understand firstly that unlike many other forms of competition which are differentiated based on gender, art is inherently different from other things. It is inherently different from sport because of quite a few reasons. Firstly, we believe that there is no significant biological factor that can determine someone's artistic ability over another individual. Why is this not the case in something else? For instance, in sports leagues, we see that in most cases, there tends to be a women's football category and a men's football category, mainly because firstly, men tend to have a physical advantage over women in that case, but we believe that that is not the case in art. And secondly, we believe that men and women in today's world have to work with each other in films and songs and so on and so forth. Hence, we believe that when individuals already have the ability of working together and interacting with each other, and we believe that they can also compete with each other and stand on an equal foot. Thirdly, we believe that there is no difference in which female artists in the skills that female artists and male artists have to learn. What do we mean by this? We believe that every actor or actress has to learn how to recite lines powerfully, has to learn how to take direction. We believe that there is no significant distinction in the skills that they have to learn. And fourthly, we believe that they have access to the same educational and training facilities in today's modern day and age. Because of these four reasons, we believe that there is no inherent principal reason for these individuals to be differentiated simply based on their gender. What do I mean by the fourth point? I mean that anyone can get into Juilliard, anyone can get into Charlotta, and so on and so forth. Now, what is the conclusion of all of this principle justification? We believe that separating men and women is illogical and that it is sexist. Because firstly, we believe that we encourage differentiation and otherization of women from men, and we believe that the current status quo shows that they cannot compete on a level playing field. And we find that to be completely bogus, because we believe that men and women are just as equally likely to turn in powerful performances in art and show outstanding merit. Now, exactly how do we help create more opportunity? Now, understand that in our world, as men and women now have an equal playing field, understand that firstly, we will create more healthy competition. And why is this important? Firstly, understand that we increase the quality of merit. Because there's only one broad category now, the chances of getting an award is reduced, and hence people will actively campaign for more powerful projects. They will actively campaign for projects that are likely to get awards attention, that are likely to get attention from the general public, and they are far more likely to advocate for something that will be recognized by the general public. Why is this important? This means that female directors, female screenwriters will have more of an active incentive to advocate to advocate for studios to recognize their work, and they have far more of an active incentive to campaign for their work. Now, one more important layer of analysis is understand exactly how gender roles are further destroyed in our side of the world. Understand that everyone competes in the same category, and hence, as a result of this, marketing, trailers, promotional material for art will not be gendered or marketed towards specific genders. What do we mean by this? We mean that there will be no more movie trailers saying that we're for your consideration best actress or best supporting actor. And thirdly, why is this important? We believe that studios or art organizations which endorse art will, when they campaign for these awards, for this recognition, they'll be far more likely to be gender blind in their casting process. Why is this important? This means that now women will have access to a greater variety of roles. Now studios will have more of an incentive to encourage to cast a woman as James Bond, or to cast a woman as Harry Potter, when previously they had no active incentive to do so. Now, understand that the main argument from opening opposition or closing opposition that will come is that this will harm equal representation. What is our response to that? We believe that we ensure equal representation. Quite a few reasons for this. Firstly, we believe that with there being only one category, awards bodies will be pressured to include more women of color, more women in general, more LGBTQ individuals, and so on and so forth. And secondly, understand that they have an active incentive to recognize outstanding merit from few groups. Why is this so? This is
Point of
because
information.
last minute. This is because firstly, because of backlash that exists, which is exacerbated by social media. And we believe that this backlash creates a check and balance system. We have already seen that in 2015, where all the 20 acting nominees were black. The Academy achieved so much backlash that the next year, the Academy expanded its membership to include more black members. And what does this result in? This resulted in more people of color getting acting nominations, and the first black Muslim actor to ever win an Oscar. Ladies and gentlemen, because we show you principle justification, because we create more opportunity, and because we show you that equal representation is possible on our side, ladies and gentlemen, for all of these reasons, we believe that you should vote with opening government. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Now I would invite the leader of opposition to open his case. Here.
Okay.
Guys, when
Okay.
someone is speaking, guys, mute your accounts so that just small noises don't come.
Sure. Okay. I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, understand when they come up and say that why not having a separate awards will create a equal representation of both women and men, and why they accused us for the segregation of women as principally unjustified, we make you understand that how, even though the awards which may sound as like not which may sound as like non-neutral is actually justified at the very first place. Understand, we're here in our speech. In my speech, I will be giving you the questions of the following questions, that answers of the following questions, that why giving a gender neutral is not feasible, and why giving a gender neutral award denies women its proper empowerment, and why, even though in this world of gender neutrality, it is still fair to have separate awards, and why segregation of award is principally justified. Understand, we live in the millennial era where both women and men are getting the chance to have fair amount of opportunity to represent themselves in this field of art. But understand, still there is some stereotypical difference that happens within the people, even into the higher sectors, especially in the Hollywood, where people are more advanced, people are more educated about the fact that this kind of discrimination doesn't matter. But still, it's happening. If you see a survey that has been given by the Los Angeles Times in 2014, that the award that was given, 63% of the awards, the average age of the people who are giving the vote for the Oscars was 63. That means that a little more older people are giving their votes, are casting their votes in specific in specific sectors of the Oscars. If you consider this kind, or if you consider the Oscar or the Golden Globe Award with any sort of other award ceremonies like the MTV one or the other ceremony where the MTV one or the Grammy Awards, you will find that a little more younger generation is more involved there. But in case of Oscar, it's more like our older generation, and which gives or which impedes a further way of this kind of discrimination being more active. If you see that the thing they came up that there is the acting in the field of acting or in the field of this kind of modern art, there's no need of specific genders or separating genders, but understand still there is no neutrality. There's no scenario where neutrality is currently exists in the scenario itself, because even though you may come up with the example of Angelina Jolie doing the single gender movie like the Lara Croft Tomb Raider, or Jennifer Lawrence doing a movie of Hunger Games, but still, if you see in the broader picture, according to the statistics of 2015, according to the statistics of 2015 by the historical actor and actress participation, you will see that 63% of men are getting more diverse roles, are getting more interesting roles than the woman itself. So what happens is that in case of vote, first of all, there is more older age people who are voting for Oscars. So definitely, even though they are advanced, but though they are not as much as neutral in case of two different genders like the younger generations are. So there is always a supremacy of the main gender itself occurs. Understand, when there is two separate genders award, what happens is that they feel likely to vote for the woman who deserves. But when there is a direct competition between both man and woman, so there are some people, there are some people exist who never, even though the woman has done something which is deserving enough, but still they don't find the incentive to suprematize a woman over a man. So in this scenario, the woman doesn't get the proper right, or a woman doesn't get the proper supremacy that it deserves. Understand? They come up with the sector about sexism, that how this discrimination can be impeded at its very root by having a gender neutral award. But understand, if in this scenario that we are trying to say, if in this non-neutral situation that currently exists in this in this situation of the artistic scenario that happens in Bollywood, women who especially are being not much as empowered as men, they don't get the specific wage. They are denied the wage and salary and respect and confidence that they used to get when there were two separate awards, because at least one woman is to one award, and a man also used to one another award. So woman is to get a simple amount of respect, a simple amount of salary, a simple amount of prize money, that which could have empowered others. Understand? Even though there is no biological difference, but there is a difference in the circumstances. Even though women are getting a lot more freedom in this acting scenario, but still most of the women, if you see majority portion of the films, women are used as a side product.
Point of information.
Yes, accepted.
Don't you think that if the Oscars completely ignores women, like let's say out of 10 nominees, they give 8 nominations to men, don't you feel that they would receive a significant amount of backlash for doing so?
Could you please repeat? I didn't get that.
If the Oscars, for example, under opening government's model, if the Oscars, let's say, nominates 8 men out of 10 categories, don't you think they will receive a significant amount of backlash for not including more women?
Yes, there will. But see, you imagine a hypothetical situation where there is 8 women and 2 men. Then the backlash will be more considering to the situation that you depict. Here, if there was 8 women, then what happened used to people couldn't give them the proper chance. There are 2 men who were in the nominee sector could have got them fair amount of larger votes, because people, like I said before, people who have the stereotype thinking, they used to give the vote to the man itself, because when there is direct competition between men and women, then the backlashes doesn't matter. That what matters is that the stereotypical minds comes up. So when there were if there were 10 awards and 5 awards for a specific specific genre of best actress and 5 for a specific genre of best actor, then both of the female and male could have got an award, which could have empowered. We believe that yes, gender neutral award is a fair solution, of course, but not now, because still there is no gender neutrality situation currently exists in this environment. So when you cannot make sure that this kind of gender neutrality situation happens, till then there should be two separate awards for them, because if it is not, then one of the gender is always going to be suffering from it, and specifically the woman. So understand, this kind of situation is very necessary. And how, the why a gender neutral denies women is proper empowerment, we gave you the answer. Why, even though the world needs a gender neutral condition, but still it's not being ensured. So no case of gender neutral award is still feasible at the current situation. So we gave you the answer. So why giving a gender neutral is not feasible, we gave you the answer that even though it's really important that we understand the better actor, whoever she is or he is, should get the prize. But nowadays, even though the mentality, even though if it's a mentality or the circumstances or the socio-economic condition or the chances of getting a better or diverse role for it, it's not there. Because even though if you see the film fraternity, 65% of the directors or the scriptwriters are male, because they are given that. So most of the males, even though they are currently representing gender equality, still has an inherent mindset of getting the male one, the upper hero. That's why if you could see the superhero movies, you don't see much of a woman except the Wonder Woman. You see the majority of the superheroes are men. That's how the inherent thinking is passing through the situation. That's why women are not getting much diverse role as comparison to the men are. So that's why, even though this kind of situation is happening in their cases, even though they tell that equal representation is not necessary under their scenario, and they came up with a statement that that when there is a gender neutral award, people will be forced to ensure people will be forced to ensure the gender equality. People will be forced to ensure to give chances to every genre of people. But that actually is not feasible, because when there is a single award given, there is always a mindset. According to current situation, there is always a mindset that the man will be getting more chances to win the award than a female, and that's how it happens. Understand, in this world, still the the importance of meritocracy has not been on the peak. So when it's not ensured, when the awards are not given on merit, when the votes are sometimes biased on a certain cases, when the roles are biased on certain cases, you cannot give a same award to both man and woman. Understand? It's very hard to say that, but it's the better way. What's the trade-off here? Yeah, here you, if the gender neutral award, suppose we accept that if the gender neutral award is being served, but still you will see that after 5 to 6 years, the number of winners of the best actor or the number of winner of the best director will be more men than women itself. Because why? Because these stereotypes mind don't move at a certain place. But we believe after 100 years or 50 to 60 years, this kind of stereotypes will be removed, because the younger generation will be the one who will be driving the main force. The one who are 20s now will be in their 50s, and they will be the driving force behind all this. And this kind of stereotypes, which still exist now, will be completely abolished. Till then, this kind of till then our solution is better than theirs. And when this kind of neutrality will exist, we are very okay to accept it. And understand, here our debate is main goal is to ensure equality, right? And if this debate wants equality, it is still not served in their cases, but it's our case is way better in order to ensure gender equality than theirs. Thank you.
Thank you, Elu. I request the speakers to set a time and speak the time they're only supposed to speak. So now I request the DPM to open their case. Here.
Can I take a minute or so, like just a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, this is Deputy Prime Minister. Wait, let me just start my timer. Okay, starting in. Am I audible, guys?
Yeah, yes, you
Okay,
are.
starting in three, two, one. Okay, side opposition seems to be living in a highly dysfunctional society where time essentially stands still, right? They talk about old people deciding who gets the Oscars, old people deciding who wins awards, and stuff like that. They talk about society where it's literally standing still in time, where it's incapable of moving forward further and developing. They talk about how there is more stereotypes in our world, and they talk about how gender neutrality is unfeasible and how women are not empowered. Let's understand that this debate is not about whether or not gender neutrality in these kind of art awards and award ceremonies and competitions are feasible or not. It's whether or not this thing is the right thing to do. So when they bring up unfeasibility as one of their main arguments, as core components of their case, we cannot accept it at all, because that's a very weak argument. And they haven't really showed us, they have just asserted a bunch of things and haven't really shown us how exactly this stereotype is reduced under their world. Because through my speech, I'll be showing you a number of things. First of all, how this system of creating a level playing ground, this single category of giving everyone the same, with everyone fighting for the same award, creates a much more fairer playing grounds for everyone, and how stereotypes are actually diminished under our world in the long term, and how they are maintained in the world, how they're maintained in the world, maintained in their world. And I'll be integrating most of my rebuttals within my case. All right, so moving on to my case, how exactly it creates fair practice. Understand what is the world that we're fighting for. What is it that we fight for? We fight for the fact that these award committees will have to give these awards to people, and they will have an active incentive to recognize good performances irrespective of gender. How so? Basically, passing this motion would essentially mean that men and women would be fighting for the same award. This means that these men and women are on the same playing ground. And since they are on the same playing ground, they will be judged based upon solely their acting, not on some other things, like not on some other sexist things, like whether or not gender roles are followed or how good they look and stuff like that, right? So for also passing this motion essentially does two things. First of all, it increases the stake for getting an award, and hence by definition it increases the stakes for judging an award, which could lead to better and much more fairer judgments when coming to giving these awards. And secondly, it creates significant amount of backlash in society when these things do go haywire, when when you have 8 men and 2 women getting nominated for Oscars, which was asked by my first speaker in the POI, which they have failed to answer, and they actually agree that there will be backlash, and I'll be showing you how that backlash is actually a good thing. Okay, so moving on to my first point, how increasing the stakes of getting an award is actually a good thing, because it creates a much more fairer playing ground and much more fairer way of judgment. Okay, so understand that when you have higher stakes for getting an award, and when you have more and we have a larger pool of people fighting for the same award, this essentially increases healthy competition within the society. How so? Since there are more people fighting for the same one award, more and more people would thrive to bring about much better forms of art, would thrive to bring about much improved and higher quality form of art. And this essentially will bring about a really important change within our society. This essentially will mean that these art will have higher merit to be judged upon, and these judges will have greater incentive to judge these things, or or give them awards much more seriously, to take more complex things into account, such as how good the acting was, or how good this art was, or how good that art was, on the because it creates much better art forms, right? Because when you have good roles in movies, when you see good acting, when you see good cinematography, when you see good screenplay and stuff like that, you feel encouraged and you feel motivated to act when you're a film critic, to actually, look into these things much deeper and understand these things much better, and actually, give the awards based on merits. So since the bar is increased, since there's much better art styles out there, we believe that these judges will have an active incentive to judge these things based on the merit and how good the acting is. And because under our world that gender segregation is essentially removed, we believe that such behavior of choosing more creating a more representative society is much more likely to happen in the long term. Let's take an example. Let's take an example, right? So let's talk about exam grading systems from British Council and stuff like that, right? So when you have a paper that goes to British Council, and when they're checking an exam and you have better exams, when they see that you're entering into a higher mark bracket or a higher A star brackets, then the examiners start to check these things more harshly, start to looking into these nitty gritty, start looking into whether or not you actually know the answers to these questions and stuff like that. Now, albeit these are not art forms, but similar incentive structures are at play when you're critiquing art, when you're critiquing different arts, or when you're critiquing different movies, right? This is why it's much more likely to create a world where these art will be judged more fairer. And even if they're not, then there will be significant amount of backlash from society, which will force these people to improve upon these things. My first speaker has brought up an example of the Oscars, how it was essentially racist, how it was essentially, allegedly racist because it did not have black actors in 2015. The very next year, you have more black people in the community, you have more black representation, you have more black nominations, and heck, you even have Moonlight, which is a movie about black people and also gay people essentially winning the Academy Awards. So we believe that it will create much more representation within the society, and that's a good thing, because when these backlashes are faced, it helps bring about such gender problems and such problems within the academy, within these art committees into light. When they're brought into light into society, there is likely to be more discourse within society. People are likely to talk about these problems, and because these committees have an image to protect, they are likely to want to fix on that. They're likely to capitalize on that, and this will lead to art committees becoming much more fair and much more better. What do we create? We create a world where gender stereotypes and these gender roles are essentially diminished, and we create a world where these people are marked much more fairly, and hence we win this debate. Thank you. That was 7 minutes and 30.
Thank you, DPM. Now, I would like to invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here. Hello?
Starting. So the
Okay.
government, so the government side comes up and talks about how in our world, sorry, how judges aren't biased, and judges these actors and actresses completely on their talents and acting performance and not on beauty and etc. And why more people will lead to more competition and thus more opportunity, more better performances etc. and thus more opportunities. So I'll be rebutting these two arguments. So when we say that these judges will be biased towards men, we do not mean that these judges um, will be consciously biased, because understand, this is an unconscious bias. where you are biased because of previous stereotypical stances and situations, because of how society views it. When in the society for the past couple of decades, people are rambling about how men are better than women and how women can't do these things better than men, etc. These things get embedded in your head, and this is called unconscious bias, where you don't even know that you're biased towards these men. And this is the that will happen during this awarding, during the voting process, because as the as our first speakers already said, most of these judges are men in the first place, and thus they will not they are unlikely to protest against these facts, and they will um, fall under this unconscious bias, and thus the awarding distribution will not be fair. Now onto their
UI.
not taken. Now onto their second point, why more people will lead to more competition. Now understand, what does more people, more categories in, sorry, more amount of more awards in a certain category means? This means that this reduces the value of the awards, and this will create less opportunity. Now why is this? Because understand, what people, what the general public's mentality is, they do not see a person's act they a large part of their mentality resides on the awards these actors or actresses get. When they see that an actress was first in the women's category, they do not think about, yeah, this is only the women's category exclusive. However, when they see that in both, when this segregation no longer exists and both of them are merged, and a woman got fourth while the top three are men, this creates a mentality in the general public's mind that yes, this woman isn't as good as the others. However, in our scenario, the public will think that yes, this woman is the first and she deserves this position, she must be good at it. Now what does this mean? This means that uh, what do producers look for? Producers look for actresses who can actually please the public, whom the public will be pleased by, and the public
UI.
will enjoy. Not taken. The public will enjoy their acting, and this is why these producers will give these women more opportunities for acting, more let's say more diverse roles in these movies, because people like them. And this also um, strengthens our argument that more women will be empowered by this, because when a normal woman sees that yes, these women are getting the top prices in these categories, they are actually doing things that in the government world is unfathomable, then these women will be empowered. They will want to um, chase their goals, and um, they will
On that.
they will be empowered. And yes, and now I'll be talking about our argument. So when we say that, all right, so when the government side comes up and says that this is principally justified because both the men and women are getting the equal amount of education, equal amount of um, their bases are equal. However, we tell you that this is only true in a world where discrimination doesn't exist, where this unconscious bias in these voters' mind, and thus in our world where this does exist, where these voters were in the
people's minds, men are more superior to women, or at least unconsciously are more superior to women, this
UI.
isn't principally justified. Yes, I'll take.
How do you ensure under your world this inherent bias and adhering to gender stereotypes are removed, where segregation exists on the in contrast to our world where this segregation essentially
Sorry,
doesn't
could you
exist?
repeat the question?
How do you ensure that in your world that you don't have groups of people adhering to these stereotypes or adhering to these inherent biases that you talk about in contrast to our world
Oh,
where
yes.
this segregation doesn't exist?
Yes, now I've talked about this before, that when a person sees that this woman was first in the category, this creates a mental image in his mind that yes, this is good. However, in your world where this segregation doesn't exist, where these two where men and women are merged together in one category, this creates and when that same woman who would have gotten first position gets fourth position behind three men, this creates a mental image that yes, that woman isn't good enough, and these top three, they're the real deal, they're the good ones. And where in our world, these the people, they think that no, that woman is actually good, she can act and she is better than the others. And that is why this stereotype will be broken eventually, because when people see that in your world where because of this unconscious bias already existing right now, more men will be getting first, second, third positions and women will be left behind. This will continue to drive this stereotype because people won't be seeing any woman getting first positions and etc. And that is why we're proud to oppose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Diallo. Uh, we come to the end of the first half of the debate. Now, to open the second half, I would request the member of the government side. Here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Madam Chair, I'm going to talk about a couple of things in the closing extension in this debate. I'm going to talk about how this creates a narrative that women are inferior. I'm going to talk about how it creates a veil of illusion as if there is not a huge problem in the film industry, in fact there is. And I'm going to talk about other factors like how it excludes gender, non-binary people, and a lot of other extensions that I'm going to bring. But before that, a very quick rebuttal to the only case brought out by open opposition, that is to say discrimination and bias exist in the society today. Basic response is simple, right? First is the recognition of that response in the status quo is extremely low. That is to say, people seldom think or people seldom recognize that these kind of things exist in the film industry in the first place, right? There's a broad ranging recognition is something that actually removes these kind of problems in the long run, right? But secondly, we see there are other identities as well where these kind of discrimination and these kind of biases exist, like race, for instance. But even then, we do not have these kind of different black actor and white actor kind of discrimination, because we say there is much more narrative, much more implication than just mere discrimination. I'm going to talk about that in my substantive as well, right? The first extension is obviously about how this separate of separate art prizes indicates or implies something much more than, right? It implies to the actress who won this prize, it to the society who is watching this award show, that a woman cannot compete with men. In at least women cannot compete with men, right? It belittles the ability of women actors to compete with men, right? It also implies that these men and women are separate people. It implies a apartheid society where like men and women cannot integrate into a single society, right? We say that means that we're moving away from a society where your sex does not really matter in comparison to who has. We do not do these things in terms of racial lines where we do not have a black actor and a white actor. We say this implication that women cannot compete with men is problematic and should not happen, right? The secondly, we see there are different when the second extension, obviously where second extension is that when there's different prizes for different gender, there are different metric to judge different actor and different best actor and best actress. That is to say the metric by which you decide if someone is a best actor is different from a metric from where you decide if someone is a best actress, right? These are oftentimes metrics, oftentimes riddled with gender stereotypes, like men should be involved in more action, should be more dominant and should play more lead roles, and whereas women should be more caring and should be more supportive of someone else, right? We say the major reason why we change this is that we create an incentive for when we have a single universal metric to judge if someone is a best actor. We say we create an incentive for producers, we create an incentive for actresses and actors for everyone to produce similar views. That is to say, the mind of the people in the society that have been riddled with gender stereotypes, which they have been watching in mainstream media, which they have been watching in films, is something that is going to change, right? Because it's now people are not going to conform to the existing social stereotype that are being fed to them because of the fact that the metric to decide whether you are a best actor or not is also sexist. But understand thirdly that the very notion that there is a best actor and best actress is also limiting to gender non-binary people, right? Because it is based on the supposition that gender is binary in the first place. But we say there are a couple of problems with this. First, it does not give representation to other actors who do not conform to this gender binary system of only male and female. That is to say, it does not give representation to trans people. It does not give representation to queer actors as well, right? But secondly, the social implication of the existence of these kind of gendered superior actor title is also problematic, right? Because basically implies that there are only two genders, or at least at the worst case scenario, there are only two important genders in the society. But secondly, it also removes our path from a future of non-binary society, right? The path where this world is leading from now is heading towards a path where gender is only personal to you and is not a social construct which you have to conform to, right? It means that it is the existence of this award is stopping this progress towards the society where queer kids and transgender kids do not feel left out of the system because they don't get represented in these kind of award system. We say that is something we should do, right? But fourth extension, right? Because the fact that the fact that there's different awards for both men and women means that there's a lack of genuine deserving appreciation that someone who works really hard to get that award deserves, right? Because when these individuals do cross the structural barrier, become best actor, like do very best and give a wonderful film, they're only respected as one of the best. They're not respected as the best actor, right? That is a depreciation of the amount of value that truly deserve in because of the fact that they put in the work required, right? It relates to women actors who have gone beyond structural barriers and done a wonderful job in acting. It goes to male actors as well who also do a wonderful job but only recognized in far as in terms of male actors only and not as the best actors. But it applies moreover to women actors in the status quo who are strong enough to go beyond structural barriers and still do their best. Last extension, right, creates a bit of illusion that there's no problem, or at least no huge problem in this film industry where there is. We say the major reason when these people are recognized, when the best woman actor is recognized, fans are basically happy that their best actress is recognized. The celebrities are happy themselves they're being recognized for their work. But genuine problems that needs solving in these kind of film industry, like problem like women do not really get much lead roles in the first place, probably because the story maker is a sexist person who thinks that women should be a supporting actor, right? But probably even then, at the best case scenario, because they have an incentive to sexist audience who likes to watch only a male leader. There are problems like voters who are sexist and who have unconscious bias, something that O brought about. Right? There are problems like structural barriers, low wages. We see these kind of problems not oftentimes come outside to the in the society. Right? It comes moreover on the outside because of three major reasons. First, because of the actress themselves speaking more over, because of the fact that they're not being recognized for the work that they're doing, and because of the fact that they are tired of the structural barriers that they've been fighting for. It becomes more aware because it also happens on our side more often because the fans themselves are more aware because of the fact that they realize that there is a sexism in the vote system, because even when they see the actress is doing far better than the best actor who won the battle, they recognize that there is a sexism involved, right? But understand that these kind of actresses have a cult of personality. That is to say, the kind of awareness that sexism exists extends much more towards a wider society where this sexism is a problem in itself. We say that is a world where we prefer to live in the closing government. We're very proud to propose.
Thank you, the member of government. Now I'd like to invite the member of the opposition to open their case. Here.
I'll take a minute. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
I'll take a minute to start my timer. Panel, everything that government said in this debate were all based on logical facts and intuitions that do not at the end of the day stand when you compare them to the real world. We do not accept any of those premises. Let's start with a couple of rebuttals starting from opening government, coming down to closing, and then I'll give you our substantive arguments. Firstly, the opening government gives us a vague case on two lines. One, they say us that if you allow women and men to compete in the same realm, they'll incentivize people to add more women to work. No, panel. Why? Understand, in today's world, the one factor that's excessively important in today's world is promotion. And how is that promotion occurring in our side exclusively is when women get best actor or best actress is provided to a woman. That means that those women are more likely to be casted in other movies, and they're more likely to be provided more roles because of the promotional value that they provide from these Oscar roles, which are exceptionally high. That is why it's the incentive to get more roles is more likely in our side than their side. Secondly, the argument that they come up with is when the opening half argues upon the fact that the roles and the situation of the women and men is not equal in both sides of the house, and so it is okay for us to give them an edge by creating separate gender roles. They argue by saying that, oh yeah, but because of the lack of representation that would be of those women, the problems of the world would be solved. And this is an argument that's coming from both sides of the house, right? How do we directly engage with that? Four lines of argumentations against that. Firstly, understand that they compare this by giving us the black people's example of that when there was no black people nominated in the Oscars, the likeliness there was a backlash there. Understand that those kinds of occurrence will be very less likely to occur in cases of women because they're of the sheer number of women representation in Oscar. That is to say, in the 100 roles, 100 awards that are going to be given, obviously because 50% of the population is women, there will be at least 40% representation. There will never be a condition where there will be lack of representation, and so the threat is ignited. And secondly, because there'll always be some number of women in those places that incentive that or such large number of backlash will never occur. But even in the best case scenario, right, that is to say when those backlash occurs and because of that Oscar starts to nominate people, will give you a substantial argument on why these women should still not be awarded those awards in the first place, and then we'll argue on why that's uniquely important. But moving forward, understand that they the closing half brings in an argument that the problems of these situations, problems of these societies, or problems of the film industry will be recognized, right? That the problems what are existent are will be recognized. What's the problem with that argument is like just like in the condition of the black people, despite the fact that the problem is identified in their side of the house, the problem is not actually solved, right? The problems are not actually dealt with in a proper manner. That is to say, the problems will still be existent.
Sir,
Yes, in one year there might be a few amount of argumentations, but they'll not solve the problem. But moving forward to the closings half, right? What did they other argue about? They argued about why women in the society can still compete, but there's a narrative that they can't. They actually cannot compete. We'll tell you how that's existent. But secondly, they
on
tell
that
us
point,
that
sir.
it's problematic that because people like transgender people are not actually represented in the world. Understanding their side of the house where there's only one award and there's only 10 places for representation, though transgender people and other people are even less likely to appear even in the broad state media, the representation argument just simply does not stand. Then in our side, what are we going to argue on? Understand, panel, their argument holds slowly is that yes, there's going to be a few backlash, and because of that, Oscar is start to keep more representation, and other people start to keep more nominations. Understand, despite the fact there'll be nominations, these people, these women who are nominated in these places will never be awarded those awards, and that is the problem, right? What is that? What do we mean by that? Understand that art is an idea, is subjective in nature. That is to say, it is judged by a peer group, that is to say, a large number of voting groups or a small number of 60, 100, 200 academy ingrained voters who decide on themselves by watching the movies which they believe is right or wrong. That is to say, even despite the fact that Leonardo DiCaprio got nominated several hundred times, he did not get an award till the last decade, shows that you can have biasness, and you can have when repeatedly people are not awarded awards. In those conditions, women are very likely not to get awarded awards. Why? One, because of the social barriers that exist, right? Because women, just people just don't think that women should be awarded and are competent enough, and because the prejudices are involved in
On
it,
that
they're
point,
not
sir.
likely to be awarded. But even in the best case scenario, right, that the prejudice do not exist, why they're not likely to get awarded is because they simply get less roles in the house. That is to say, they simply are offered less movies. In today's status quo, women are doing less movies than men are, and women are doing less work than men are in Hollywood and in overall scenario, because they are provided less opportunities. But secondly, because the quality of work that they are getting, that is to say, leading roles in which a man gets to do whatever he wants to and gets to explore how much he wants to, is very likely less likely to be given as a role to women in their side of the world. And so it's problematic that they'll not be given the awards. But why is that award uniquely important in our side of the house, right? Four lines of argumentations to that. Firstly, because it creates recognition of women. Understand, panel, as I give you an example, look at examples of directors and cinematographers in today's world, right? Directors and cinematographers are given the same award in every condition, and there is no best male director and female director. Because of this reason, we simply do not know of a single female director that is present there, or even if we know very less of them compared to the large sheer number of directors that we know. Why? Because there's simply lack of women representation in these scenarios. When this kind of condition occurs with actors and actresses, the same kind of condition will occur rather than solving of the problem. But moving forward, right, why is this problematic? Is because because women are going to be awarded less roles, means one, it'll create less woman role models. That is to say, in our side of the house, when you see a woman being awarded the best actress, that is to say she becomes a role model for a lot of women and a lot of children around the world. But that is going to occur less in their side. Secondly, outshining of good women, right? Even if a woman does a very good role, because she's asked to compete with a man who gets to do 5 good roles in a year, except compared to a woman who gets only 1 good role, her 1 good role is also in outside. But thirdly, understand that because women are more objectified in our side of the world, in today's world, in any world, their only way to get that substantial benefit, or their only way to be recognized and to say, you did a good job and you did a recognition, is when you get that award. The moment you take away that award from them, these women are more objectified, and their objectification is more increased in their side of the house than in our. Understand what happens. Women are less motivated, they are not recognized, competition is killed, and the narrative still exists in their side of the house. It's problematic at our principal level, but there are pragmatic benefits in their side. We are proud to oppose this motion.
Thank you, the member of opposition. Now, I would like to invite the last speaker from the government side. Here.
Panel, let me start from why we win this debate. We have brought about several different extensions that actually cover more or less more broad areas than these people have ever covered. Firstly, we have told to you about the existence of narrative, where we now have the narrative in the status quo that women cannot compete with men. That is the reason as to why women have to be given a separate, different award that is different from men in the status quo. Also, this creates a sexist narrative that women and men are separate, even in the category like arts where they can show the similar kind of things. This restricts the kind of opportunities women and men are given, and these opportunities restriction will mean that they are confined to a separate kind of gender roles even within a movie, which is detrimental because they can never transform out of this, right? So, what did we bring to you on this debate? Firstly, the narrative point. Secondly, why the different metric to JAWS is transitioned into a single metric to JAWS. Now we tell you that men are naturally associated with masculine, villain, superpower, action, dominant, while women are restricted to feministic roles, more like taking involved with taking care, just looking beautiful and things as such. We change the metric on our side for both men and women because they here in our side they can dissolve these roles and act as caring individual as well as masculine individual for the men, and for women we have a side that that can be a lead hero or a superhero on our side of the house. This kind of single most powerful impact which opens the door for several many opportunities for both women and men is the reason as to why we have brought about a very broad kind of censorship. Thirdly, we have been talking about the kind of people all of these sides ignored. Those people who, when in the world we have gender binaries not differentiated for men and women, we represent queer and transgender people on our side of the house. We say in the world where they are naturally left out, we say we engage this kind of stakeholders, right? So how do we do that? Like in the category where there is best actor and best actress, we have no room for this kind of binary people or transitionary people. Even if we create a category as such, like for binary people, they are very few in number and they will just be the best binary people or best transgender people, meaning that they will never achieve, they will know the kind of potential they are capable of. They will never be represented in the system that they write out. These people are also most important because they seek to have representation in this kind of movies as our society has been transitioning into the kind of liberal society. We say the opposition side, both closing up and opening up, do not engage with our answer. Also, we have talked about to you by the specific kind of women actors who went across the structural barriers, the kind of biases you talked about. These people went across this, won everybody's heart. Maybe they got the most number of votes, but they will still be one among the best actors and not the best actor of the society. Why that is to because we separate them into women roles. These more powerful women, more energetic women who have achieved so much more are now never recognized in the side because we see this is the kind of role model we need for change. Why is this important? Now let's say if a woman wins best women actor in the role, right? The women below down are never incentivized to go up because first they believe that it's the best women actor role, so that is not as good an achievement as best actor role. Even a woman being fourth in best actor role is an achievement, that a capacity that she has won several different males on that comparison, that people can incentivize that this is the kind of change we require in a movie. This is the kind of role model that can actually entice change in the kind of people we're talking about. The kind of competition or the metric that we brought forward has been extended by our side into the level that this competition is more fair, more broad, because now women will be competing by going beyond the structural barriers and creating change for the society by being the topmost actor of the overall context, right? So before that I'd like to engage with other sides and tell you why their comparatives do not stand on our side of the house. We say we win over the opening government by bringing out a broad spectrum of analysis, and also by including the kind of people they never included, the trans people, the transgender people, and things as such. We create more opportunity for women, and we tell you the identification of problem is the most important thing, right? So the present scenario, right? When the opening opposition talked about this is the stereotypical distinction in the people. There is a problem in the people. We say in the present scenario we don't acknowledge the problem at all because women are still getting priced. We ignore as if there is no problem, but in our that is actually a false sense of problem because women are depressed even in film industries, even in societies as such. As long as women keep winning Oscars, we will not recognize that problem. But when we see even in their side, maybe no women will be elected in the top five category. If that will indicate that there is a serious problem in the status quo, that is the real status quo in the present scenario, where we cannot just close our eyes to that will move us forward to incentivize the situation of change for these women, right? Only when we know that people are actually biased towards women, people are not actually voting for them, the reason as to why these people are not going forward is the reason when we identify this. When we identify this stereotyping is a problem and that is impacting the awards, only then will we push through the problems. That is why there is no neutrality in the scenario, and that neutrality is portrayed in the status quo. We say that is wrong. Next, they have talked another more important point about like until the situation is after the situation is fair, we give them gender neutral awards, right? So we say this is we say instead of waiting for the situation to be fair, we say we make this the mechanism for the situation to be fair. Like at least why we say movie industry is better place to make this kind of, we say movie industry is better positioned to change the minds of people because it has a large number of outlets, a cult of personality, large capital available to spread the narrative and things as such. Like so, if we transform this message through the movie industry that women can also compete in the level of men by actually doing things as such, we say this is the mechanism through which we bring this change. We don't have to wait for the gender neutrality to evolve. We say this is why they talked about. Also, they never proved. They told that they would bring about the principal justification, which they never did, and that is the problem with the opposition side. Also, what they created was this they elaborated more mechanistic problem rather than like they talked about unconscious biases of the judge. That is like a mechanistic problem in this kind of scenario when which even exists in both of the sides. Like women will be confined to the roles that are very deemed second class. Like even the best women will always be second class to other kinds of men who won the award, right? So this distinction where they refuse to integrate is very bad because the problems are mechanistic and that problem do not really toss to the heart of the debate. Also, they talk about what kind of opportunities, right? They talk about producers will give women more opportunities, but what kind of opportunities? These women are given opportunities that are less masculine, less relevant. They are given opportunities which are confined to their gender roles, which they necessarily do not need to apply for art. And that is why the value of awards is now magnified on our side instead of being decreasing because we do that. Why we have not sufficiently rebutted member of opposition side? We tell you that in most of their case stemmed from their opening ask, and the only change they brought was the change the language of things like they talked about promotion instead of giving opportunities, and that is similar to OO. Also, the important thing that they talked about was there will be nominations and women will never be awarded. That is also an example. That is also a portrayal that this identification of the problem in the status quo is important, right? You talked about Leonardo DiCaprio never getting Oscar. Leonardo DiCaprio has a large base of followers, but even so, he did not get this Oscar, meaning that it is not just contingent on vote. It is not contingent on it's also contingent on acting in on itself. And if a woman can break structural barriers and to do this kind of things, then they will be offered more movies. That is why we'll be having a global number of women acting for several different roles, not just confined to the gender stereotypes that they are confined to, means we have more available roles for these women. Also, they say that the women objectification is a problem on their pathetic attempt to bring about an extension. We say that that is a problem that is or no comparative on both of the sides because it exists on both of the sides. We say that is why there is a link in creating why women objectification exclusively occurs on our side of the house. We are very proud to propose.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Proposition Whip. Now, to end this debate, I would request the opposition whip to close the debate. Here, here.
I'll start. So, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
So, madam, what we see over here in this debate is that from the opening government side, they talk about how art is based on quality and how awards they want to merge the categories. So let's talk about how merging the categories, that they said that awards on the same category, they are going to merge the categories into one, right? So let our house, our closing opposition side tells you, Saugat tells you how this is bad because it is limiting it is limiting the categories, right? So when you limit those categories and say that when 10 people are awarded for something, so when 10 people are nominated for one award, so you are trying to say that the people out of them, there will not be any kind of biasness, which Saugat has already mentioned. There is a kind of biasness that exists already in this society, right? So now the second thing that we want to tell you is how the side of government talks about this idea being sexist, and then how their side is going to provide more opportunity, and how being gender blind. I'm just going to state what they said and then going to go on the rebuttals. And then how they talk about it is going to be a healthy competition, and then it will be a quality judgment, and how this closing half comes up and tells about the awards not being binary, right? So let me outline to you what kind of scenario that this case is presenting to us. What the side proposition is saying is that they are providing a room where when they say that gender is not binary, when they are giving one award, no, only one award, and they are saying that everyone is going to be included, they are forgetting that even the transgender people in today's world are not very much respected as the other people. The transgender people are fighting right now. So when a transgender person is included in the 10% list for that award, that person is obviously not going to be uh, obviously going to face this stereotype, right? It's not just the women who face this stereotype, it is also the other people that are going to face the stereotype. So that is how they value about this non-binary, and then how neutrality is going to go down, right? So now next thing that they talk about is that movie industry is more capable, right? And then how women are already getting awards, so it will just de-incentivize them to go and work harder. So let me tell you how this is wrong. When Saugat comes up and tells you that when you give a woman, when you segregate the women, segregate the award according to the gender, what you do is that you provide the room for both men and women to come up. And when you give a room for women to come up, the stereotypical thinking about this film industry to be wrong in the sector of women that is already going on, this will decrease. How is this so? Because as Saugat has mentioned in his speech, that when there are people, when there are women coming up for a award, or when you award a particular women for a job, that means more people like that work, right? They see that woman as an idol, they see that work to be respectful, right? And then more participation of women comes up. We give you the example of the side government gives you the example of the movie Moonlight and how black people came up, but we give you the example of how the movie screenplay actors such as Nora Ephron and who was nominated, and then Meg Ryan, these people actually got more room, more recognition after they got nominated. So unless they don't get nominated or don't get Oscars, there is not going to be a rise in the opportunity for women. So when you give a room separate room for women to come up, that is when you give them more opportunity. And then talking about how keeping only one award and not segregating these awards, how is it bad, right? So our house tells you, the closing opposition, as the closing opposition, we tell you that how giving one award is bad, because mostly, as Sogat has already mentioned in his role, in his speech, that recognition of women increases, but also less women role model, and already there is an objectification of women. So if you are giving an award to an
On that
Oscar
point,
award to, no, thank you, sir. Not right now. When you're giving an award to a superhero movie, there is obviously a mentality that obviously the main superhero is to be given the award because the female actress's role in that particular movie was not that good, right? So that just devalues the role of that woman, right? But if
on
you
that point.
give no, sir. But when you give a award on the basis of gender, you not only recognize the man's potential, but also give a room for recognition of a woman's potential, right? So you see what a woman's role in that field or that movie or that particular show was, right? So you're giving a room for the value is to value the women's participation. Yes, sir. The POI.
Don't you think that when there is a larger group of people fighting for one award, it's essentially going to increase the value of the award because there is much more at stakes? And also, how does your world remove this gender stereotype where this segregation is so prevalent, on the contrast to our world where this segregation doesn't no longer exist?
So when you talk about one award, right, you're telling what our side of the house wants is that more participation of women, right? So there is no sexism that is going on over here, firstly, and then when you give separate awards, there's more opportunity for women to come up, and there's more competition among the women that is going to rise. So this is not decreasing the kind of competition that is going to come up. It is rather increasing the competition, because when in the first prior when formerly there were 10 men competing for the best male actor, and only say six women competing for the best actress. Now the number of women coming into this industry will rise, so the competition among them will rise, right? So this answers to your first POI. And this our world is better because what we show you is that the objectification of women, that their roles in movie has to be specific, such as they have to be empathetic or dramatic, right? That is what our movie industries deems them to be. So this kind of deeming attributes that are objectified towards a woman, these kind of attributes will lessen because they will get more exposure towards different kinds of things. More women will come up to it. So when you see uh, uh, people or screenplay actresses such as Nora getting into into the nominations or winning awards, more women come into it, right? So more competition is there. So value of competition is there, and the fairness is also there. So the next thing that comes up from ours is that nomination opens door. It is also economically good, and also it legitimizes the women's effort that they are putting it into it, right? Putting into the movie. Because in your side of the world, even if a woman is playing a very good role, but her role is devalued just because another man or the superhero comes up, and then they have this physical attribute because of which they can win a Oscar, right? So the other thing that the side government brought up was about how backlashes would occur, and yeah, so their argument about the non-binary, how gender is non-binary and how gender binary idea gets propagated, it has failed in this because uh, when you give yeah has failed. So because when you give only one award, the chances of the deserving people out of the gender fluid side getting an award gets lessened. And we also tell you about how objectification decreases, and our side tells you about how more women are recognized, and then we also tell you about how women's respect in the society gets recognized. There is more respect towards the women, and then the next thing that we tell you is, yeah, the next thing that the side of the closing government brought up was how movie industry, how they say that how their side is better because they will give only one award, and the movie industry is going to, because of its more capital and more popularity, that is going to change the world's mentality. We would like to say that this kind of narrative that they're bringing up is kind of a utopian narrative, that there is no kind of biasness, and we would like to build upon that thing, that saying that even movie industry, when you give equal preferences to both men and women and give separate awards according to them, that is already present in the status quo, the kind of organization that is already present in the status quo. So these movie industries actually uh, better the condition of the women, and they bring about more respect towards the women. And yeah, by saying this, I would like to end my speech. I'm very proud to oppose.
Thank you, the opposition whip. I would request the debaters to do the virtual handshake and wait for the verdict.
Virtually shaking my hand. Take my hand.